Hello, my name is Benedict Cumberbatch and I'm reading tonight in the concert WW1 Piano and Poetry.
And what are you reading?
An awful lot, a lot of Sassoon and some poetry and a little bit of Ford Madox Ford Parade 10, which I'm appearing in an adaptation which we shot last year, which is being broadcast this September. This is my first time at Cheltenham, and I have unfortunately seen very little of it because it's lambing it down with rain.
And what made you want to be involved with the music festival?
The era, really. I've become a little bit obsessed with it and the music at the period. I mean, Ravel's La Valse was a very big influential bit of music that I sort of sourced and listened to a lot when I was doing Parade's End. And through Warhorse and Parade's End and at school doing, well, plays like All Quiet on the Western Front, it's something that's really got under my skin. I was at a school with a massive war memorial. We were made very aware, very conscious of the sacrifices of generations of men our age and what that meant both in the First and Second World War and all wars beyond. But there's a particular potency, I think, to the First World War at the moment because all the survivors are dead. I met the last three surviving English servicemen as well. I read at the Cenotaph in 2009 and again, that was just another bond, I guess, to this era. It's an extraordinary movement as well in art between Romanticism and the birth of modernism, and both doing the adaptation we've done of Parade's End, which is written a little, in retrospect, a little after the events it describes. It's still, like Joyce's Ulysses, the beginning of a movement in literature which came about partly from the obliteration of life and anything poetic, anything romantic, anything soulful that streaming hot lead and thousands of tons worth of explosives and barbed wire and cholera and mud and gas ripped away during the First World War. It was the death throes of the entire Edwardian era, and it marked a real turning point in cultural evolution as well. We couldn't look at ourselves in the same way after that. Everything was fractured. You've got Cubism and Picasso and these extraordinary novels which sort of flew in the face of the normal contrivances of linear narratives and had the most incredible flourishes and turns, but very jagged, hard things that follow streams of consciousness, multiple viewpoints of the same scene, and massive time leaps, and in the case of Ford Madox Ford, the most extraordinary language. So it's everything about it has such potency, and its legacy as well. So it's a great thing to acknowledge through the extraordinary words, especially of the men who were there, like Sassoon, that hopefully tonight's concert will reflect. It's a gift as an actor to know the original source material. So I always strive to try and, no matter what the era, no matter what the genre, even if it's fiction, but if it's an adaptation, you really do have a great bedrock and a great blueprint for characterization and context as provided by these masterpieces. In the case of Ford Madox Ford, it's the most extraordinary novel, and you kind of fall in love with it every time you go back to it. It's so rich and it's so multi-layered and a gift really to an actor to have streams of consciousness, moments where a character's entire internal monologue is tumbling out in words on the page. It's fascinating. You really very easily for nothing get under the skin of a character. So yeah, it's very important to me, even just for a vague flavour or feel of a period, to read around it and research it, to do some honour to a time or experience that's outside my own. So I guess the double blessing is when there's an incredibly detailed characterisation. How important is it? I don't know how important it is for the audience to know the original text. I think one of the points of adaptation is to bring audiences to an awareness of the original text rather than actually. I think you've lost the objective if you're doing an adaptation and they have to have read it beforehand. We don't live in an era where people can suffer the patience of a footnote referring back to a book. So I think, quite rightfully so, our artistic ventures and whatever medium should stand on their own right. And one of the great joys I've experienced is if I've been doing a classical novel or even a modern novel or a relatively modern novel, I'm thrilled when I hear that friends' children are picking up that book for the first time or adults are revisiting it, and that's always a bit of a kick. So I think it's more important to realise the true original intentions of a book when you're doing an adaptation, and hope that people go back to the original. I'm about to start work on a film called 12 Years a Slave, hence this ridiculous haircut, which is beyond endurance for summer, but even this wet one. It's a true story of a character called Solomon Alstrup, and it was played by Cheltenham Music Festival, and I've got this extraordinary character who's very paternal, who tries to patronise and educate and nurture his flock, but still, you know, when the chips are down, he raises his true colours up, and you see that he's just, again, a man who is embroiled in the nature of the slave trade, or, as it was then in Virginia, because it was after the abolition of the slave trade, the international slave trade. But that created a market whereby everyone's value was increased, because it was illegal to trade, so people would actually buy slaves and breed them, and in the case of my character, sell them at the drop of a hat in order to make the books balance. So it's an interesting one. He seems to be a good man, and he is struggling to be a good man, but he's being a good man doing a very bad thing, which is using human beings as unpaid labour to manufacture his product. It's an incredible story, and it does, like the story says, span 12 years, and I'm really looking forward to it. Stephen Queen's directing it, and it's in New York.